All right, let's talk about it. Your Toyota's check engine light is staring you down, you've plugged in a scanner, and it spits out a P1135 code. Well, you've come to the right place. We're going to break down exactly what that code means and how you can fix it. So let's just dive right in. Yeah, that little glowing engine icon can be a real headache, right? But honestly, don't sweat it. This particular code is super specific, which is actually good news for us. We're going to walk through everything step by step and get that light turned off for good. So, first things first, what is your car even trying to tell you with a P1135? Let's translate this bit of technical jargon into plain, simple English. When you hook up your OBD2 scanner, this is the exact phrase you'll see. Air/fuel ratio sensor heater circuit malfunction. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but it's actually fantastic because it points us to a very specific part and a very specific problem. So, what on earth does that actually mean? Well, think of it this way. Your car has an important sensor that measures the air-to-fuel ratio in your exhaust. But for it to work right, it needs to get hot, really fast. To do that, it has its own little internal electric heater, kind of like a tiny toaster element. The P1135 code just means your car's computer has noticed that this little heater isn't doing its job. And the code even tells you exactly where to look. Bank 1, Sensor 1. Don't let that throw you. Bank 1 is just the side of the engine where the number 1 cylinder is. And Sensor 1, that's always the first sensor in the exhaust system, the one located before the catalytic converter. You'll often hear it called the upstream sensor. So now we know exactly which part we're hunting for. Okay, so we know what the code is. Now the big question is, why is it happening? Let's go over the usual suspects. As you can see, there's a pretty clear pecking order here. 9 times out of 10, the problem is the sensor itself. That little heating element inside just burns out over time. It happens. But we can't just assume that's the issue. It could also be something simpler, like a bad wire, a corroded connector, or even just a blown fuse. And way down the list, you have less common things like an exhaust leak near the sensor or, and this is super rare, a problem with the car's main computer. All right, before we even think about grabbing a wrench, let's see if the symptoms match the crime. Your car is probably dropping a few other hints besides that annoying light on the dash. The big clue here is how the car acts when it's cold. Because that sensor heater is on the fritz, the sensor isn't warming up like it should. So for the first few minutes after you start the car, the engine might run a little rough or choppy. You'll definitely notice you're getting worse gas mileage too, because the engine's just guessing at the right fuel mix. But here's the interesting part. Once the hot exhaust warms up the sensor naturally, the car might run perfectly fine. The problem only really shows up on a cold start. Okay. We've got the code, the potential causes, and the symptoms all lined up. Now for the main event. Let's walk through the actual fix, step by step. Now this is super important, so don't skip this part. Before you zero in on just the P1135, check if the scanner picked up any other codes. Sometimes another code can be a huge clue, pointing to something like a blown fuse that powers several different things, including our sensor heater. Checking this first could save you a whole lot of time and trouble. We're going to follow this simple 4-step game plan. First, we'll find the sensor. Second, we'll give the wiring and fuses a good look. Third, we'll either test or just replace the sensor. And finally, fourth, we'll clear that code and take the car for a spin to make sure we nailed it. Okay, step 1, finding the sensor. Remember, it's the upstream one, before the catalytic converter. The easiest way to find its exact location is to just do a quick search online for a diagram of your specific Toyota model and year. It'll show you exactly where it is. Now for step 2, inspection. Once you've found the sensor, take a close look at the wires leading to it. Are they frayed, melted, or chewed up? Is the connector loose or full of gunk? Then, find your fuse box and look for a fuse labeled something like AF heater or O2 heater. Pull it out and see if it's blown. These simple visual checks are absolutely crucial. So if you've checked the wiring and it looks perfect, and you've checked the fuse and it's fine, then we can be pretty darn sure what the problem is. The odds are overwhelmingly high that the sensor itself has just given up the ghost. Now, you could get out a multimeter and test its resistance, but for most people, the simplest and most practical next step is just to replace it. And here's the good news. This isn't a wallet-busting repair. The part itself usually costs around $50. But here's a really important tip. Toyotas can be kind of picky about their sensors. Do yourself a favor and get a high-quality OEM part or one from Denso, who makes the original parts. It'll save you headaches down the road, trust me. All right, here's a pro tip that is going to save you a massive headache. You see that wire coming out of the top of the sensor? A normal deep socket won't fit over it. You're going to need a special oxygen sensor socket. It has a slot cut down the side for the wire to pass through. They're cheap, you can get them at any auto parts store, and it makes the job about 1,000 times easier. Once you've got that new sensor screwed in and plugged in, you're on the home stretch. Grab your scanner again, go in, and clear the fault codes. Then, the final test is to start the car from cold and take it for a nice drive. If that check engine light stays off, you did it. Job done. So, we've gone all the way from a mysterious code to a successful repair. Let's just boil this whole thing down to the one key idea you should take away from all this. The real key here isn't about being a master mechanic. It's about being methodical. Don't just jump to conclusions and start throwing parts at the problem. By taking a few minutes to follow a logical process, check the wiring, check the fuse, then suspect the sensor, you make sure you're fixing the actual problem, which saves you time, money, and a whole lot of guessing. See? With a clear game plan and the right info, this is a repair that you can absolutely handle yourself. So what you say? Are you ready to get out there and get that check engine light turned off? You've got this.